All right, Rob and Slim Show. We're back with Rob Gokee.
Yeah, it's Gokee.
Awesome. You're a composer, author, and podcaster, right, Rob?
I am.
Awesome.
Thanks so much for having me on, you guys.
No problem, dude. Thanks for coming on. You're from LA?
I am. You guys are in Jersey, right?
Yes, yes.
My wife's family's from New Jersey, from like Wall Township, so I'm there. We're there multiple times a year.
Cool, dude.
In fact, I spent like 3 months there last year, all of the last quarter, because she's a producer and was working on a film, and I just came out and worked mobily for 3 months.
That's like that's by like Rumson and all, right? Wall.
Yeah, kind of down by Brick, like south of Brick.
Yeah, I used to work at the Rat. I used to work in Belmar at the Rat.
Oh, cool.
So yeah, I'm definitely familiar with that area. I know my buddy Doug works in Rumson in a pharmacy, and like people that come in for shit is like Bon Jovi and like Springsteen's people come in all the time for like medicines and shit for them and stuff. It's cool. It's cool.
It's funny, when we got married back there and our friends flew out, they all expected New Jersey to look like Newark. And they came out and they saw this green and they were like, where the hell what's going on here? What is this place?
Dude, that is a nice
area. Garden State,
area.
guys.
Yeah, that's like a high-end area around here. It's like one of the nicest spots around here.
Yeah, it's awesome. I kind of feel like it's a second home because I'm there so much.
That's awesome, dude.
And I feel like I defend it now when people are like, "Oh, New Jersey." I'm like, "Hey, shut up."
Yeah, dude. Red Bank. How cool of a town is that, dude? Sweet.
Yeah, it's very cool.
Even the beach over there. What's that? What's that? The beach around there?
There's like Point Pleasant and
Points. Yes.
Yeah.
It's so nice. So nice. It's very cool. Kite festivals. There's a lot of like local stuff to check out, like local flavor.
Yeah, it's very different than LA. So it's for me, it's a nice change.
Yeah.
You know, like for my wife, it's going home to see family, and for me, it's like this huge shift. Because I was born and raised here, so
that's what I was gonna ask.
I'm used to LA.
Okay. And what did you do first? Did you like out of everything you do, composer, author, and podcaster? What was your first?
I've been a composer for film and TV for like 12 years.
Wow.
So that was the first thing I did. The book thing and the taco thing kind of fell into my lap like organically at the same time. I was known for a long time on Twitter as the taco guy and the taco composer in LA, and everybody kept saying, "Man, you should write a book." And I was like, "I don't want to write a book." And they're like, "You should write." And then after a while, like, why am I not writing a book about tacos? Everybody seems to want to buy it. Like, that's not smart of me. So I wrote the book, and then I got approached about doing the podcast. And at that time, I wasn't listening to podcasts regularly, so I was like, I don't know what to do how to do a podcast on tacos.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, why did you choose that? I didn't know that with the book, because the book I saw was, I think, a different book.
Oh, okay. So I wrote a book back in 2010 about Twitter and how it changed my life. I actually met my wife on Twitter.
Wow, that's amazing.
And I started getting all of this work as a composer on Twitter. It was like the arc for that year was great because I was on Twitter. Yeah. I went through a horrible breakup, and I was just very public about it. And that turned into all this work. People were like, "Oh man, it sucks that the relationship ended the way that it did." I had the same problem. "Oh, you're a composer. I'm producing this project. We should talk." What's going on? How am I getting work from like being miserable?
I'm just bitching about my ex. Like, that's very cool.
So I had some downtime like that year. I think I hit a slow period, and I thought, "Oh, I'll write this book." And then, of course, as soon as I started writing the book, I got really busy again. But I'd already promised that the book would come out. So I did that book and promoted it for a while, and then moved on from it. So when the taco book came along, I kind of felt like, oh, well, I've written a book before. Like, I know how to do this. Although trying to describe 70 different food places in writing without repeating yourself is hard. And like, you don't think about it until you start writing. Like, how many adjectives can I use for delicious or for these tacos are good? So I didn't want to do the same thing in the podcast. I didn't want to go on the podcast and be like, "So go to Bill's Tacos. They're really tasty. Here's me eating one." And then like crunch sounds. And then like, "Yeah, so if you're in LA, come here." It's like that podcast didn't excite me.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, I need to do something where I tell the stories of the people behind
yes.
The podcast and like interview them.
That's cool.
Or the people behind the Tacadillas, yeah.
Why did you choose tacos? Has that always been your favorite food?
It hasn't always. I grew up here, so Mexican food has always been like a staple. But it wasn't. I guess it was around. There was a funny thing on Twitter where, like, during my breakup, I tweeted a joke about being pantsless while I was tweeting, which I wasn't. I was tweeting drunk, and that stuck for a long time. So everybody would make jokes like, "Oh, I'm going to a meeting. Are you wearing pants?" And then I just entertain it for a while, like, I don't know, we'll see how the meeting goes. And then it got weird and creepy. People were like, "Do you have pictures?" And I'm like, "Okay, this is weird. I don't want to be the pantsless guy anymore. Like, that's not cool." And at the time, I was talking. I think I'd made tacos like 2 or 3 times in 1 week at home, and somebody made a comment about how I ate them a lot. And then I started tweeting about them a little more often, and that steamrolled.
Wow.
Not only did it eclipse the pants thing, which disappeared, it just became so much bigger.
Wow.
And it was just kind of like, oh, I guess this is the new thing. Like, now it's the taco thing.
Dude, that's
and then I
awesome.
just let it go. Like, well, we'll just see how long it goes. And it just kept going and going and going. And then tacos got more popular.
Yeah.
So it didn't hurt.
That's fucking pretty awesome. You just like stepped in shit. That's it.
Yeah, no, I totally did.
I love it.
It's still way better than being like the pantsless guy. I think we met somebody in Jersey.
Yes.
We came out and met somebody for the first time in person. I didn't know what he looked like. And so my wife and I are standing in a diner, and he walks in. This guy walks in, and he looks me up and down, and he's like, "You're wearing pants. I'm disappointed." Like, not sure whether to run or whether you're joking.
I don't know, Rob. I kind of want to see you. I don't know. You might have something great going on down there, bro.
I'm like, well, it's snowing outside, so I kind of don't want to take them off right now. So yeah, that's a much weirder thing. Like, tacos are so much more normal.
Yeah. That was me before the
But
tacos.
it wasn't really on purpose. It just happened to happen.
That's hilarious.
I totally stepped in shit.
As a composer, Rob, do you play instruments? Do you have like an orchestra that works with you? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, I play guitar. I've been a guitar player since I was like 16, 17. And then when I went to school to study music theory, you kind of have to teach yourself piano at the same time.
Yes.
So as a composer, I have, instrument samples have gotten so good that now in 2018, like, you can sound like a realistic orchestra if you pay $1,000 for samples. So you buy these sample libraries, and for low budget projects, that's more than enough to work. And then for bigger budget projects, you will mock up with the fake samples, and then they'll bring an orchestra in, and you'll record the orchestra and replace the parts out.
Wow. What's the biggest production you've done?
Oh, that's a good question. I've done a lot of feature films, and big is a hard word to describe, because I've done some television shows that technically had a bigger audience, but in terms of my work, felt much smaller. Like, I've done some reality TV work where they're just like, write some cues that would work well in a trailer, and so you're writing like big, like, build bombastic music that's got a lot of tension. But then I've scored, you score an entire feature film that's like a horror film, and the film is 75 minutes long, and they're like, so we want 65 minutes of music in this film. We want the whole thing scored. And then it's a ton of work at my end.
Wow. Do you read the script first, or like watch the movie first, like, and then do it, or like, how does that work?
I like to read the script, but I don't really get ideas musically until after I'm watching the movie. When I'm watching the movie and it's looping and I'm sitting down like at the keyboard and playing, that's when the ideas will come.
Yeah.
That's always the hardest part of the entire process, is that first, like, starting out, because you never know, like, is this the time that nothing's going to happen? Like, I'm going to be out of ideas.
Yeah, that's why
and once you get an idea, you get like one idea, then you're like, oh, this is going to work. And then you start to branch off, and then I feel like you're downhill from there. Like, everything is much easier.
That's what I was going to ask. Like, sometimes just for the show, like, there's something, like, there's a couple things I write for it, and I'm just not feeling it, and it'll be like the last minute. And like, do you ever like just not feel something and then just have to like shit something out, basically? Like,
It totally works that way. If there are times where someone will not give me a deadline, which is the worst thing in the world, because then
that's what I was gonna say. It's kind of like when I have to do it.
The session, and then I'm like, I don't like this. I don't like this either. I don't like this. I'm gonna go to the store and do some other shit for a while, and then come back, and I'm like, I don't like it. But the second someone's like, so in a week, I need to hear some stuff, and by Wednesday, I'm like, oh shit. Okay, something has to work. So then you force, you're like, I wrote all these things that I don't like, but one of these I've got to like make work. And you'll find one and go, what do I like about this? What can I change? And you just kind of force it to happen. Yeah. And then everything will flow. But without the deadline, it sucks.
I agree.
Because you'll just write forever.
It kind of forces you to just kill it. Like, just come out with something great. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, the self-imposed deadline doesn't seem to work for me. It's the deadline. It's when someone else is counting on me, then I'm like, oh, I can't not deliver on time, so I have to get it done. When it's me, I'm like, oh, I'll just disappoint myself. Let's go watch cartoons.
I like that.
Like last year, I was working on my own album. I was starting to do an album of like songs with vocals, and started writing. And then we got easily distracted, and then the podcast came into view, and it was like, what album? But, it was easy to sit down one day and go, I'm not feeling these lyrics, so I'm just going to go screw off the rest of the day.
What is the New Adventures of Peter and Wendy? Is that a sitcom?
Yeah, it was a digital series sitcom. They did 3 seasons. It was a reimagining Peter Pan and Wendy, like, Peter's a 30-something-year-old guy, and Wendy works for a publishing company that's owned by Hook. And so they approached me because I knew a few people that it was one of those like, oh, I know somebody who's a composer. Let's have a meeting with him. And then I came in and we did the first season. And I loved the characters and the way that they wrote it, and the script was amazing. And so we did season 1, season 2, and so of course by the third one I was like, I'm in. I loved the show. It was fun to work on and fun to write. And I felt like as we moved along, there was less music in the first season and a lot more in the second, and then a lot more than that in the third.
Nice.
So for me, and actually I scored that whole third season in New Jersey from my mobile setup for my laptop.
Wow, that's pretty awesome.
I just kind of holed up in a room for a month and just wrote music.
Wow. What is your favorite instrument? I know you mentioned you played guitar first. What is your favorite that you play?
It's probably guitar. I mean, when I think about what I listen to for fun, I listen to a lot of like rock and metal and some dubstep and EDM and like crossover stuff that's mixed together. So I feel like heavy for me is good. Like the scores that I listen to that I like are like Brian Tyler's Fast and the Furious scores, where everything is really like driving and bombastic. Yeah. So I feel like musically, I'm always trying to add guitar into a score. Where I'm like, what about this heavy guitar here during this chase scene? And sometimes people are like, oh, that's great. And they're like, no, I don't really want that guitar in there. I did a DreamWorks cartoon where the director was like, okay, this is going to be Japanese anime. It's like Tom and Jerry meets Japanese anime, and I want like 80s metal mixed with techno mixed with orchestra. So like I put it all together, and he was like, "This is great. It needs more metal." I was like, this is awesome. This is the best gig ever.
That cool. Sounds great. Is that has that been out yet? That production?
Yeah, that was like 2 or 3 years ago, a couple years ago. We did a few episodes, and then got picked up for more episodes. And then DreamWorks got sold, and then they stopped making all their stuff. And then they picked up a second show from him. It was called The Dueling Kapowskis, and it was so much fun, but so much work, because with a cartoon you're literally scoring everything. Yeah. It's like chase, slow, funny, chase, funny. Like every second has got score in it, so it's so tiring. By the end of the day, I'm like, oh my god, I'm exhausted just from writing music.
I don't know how familiar with anime you are, but Fooly Cooly, if you've ever seen it, the soundtrack for that is so good. Yeah, there's the pillows, but there's also like some other stuff in there too. They throw in like just some great music.
It's kind of cool. I feel like it lends itself to just like doing whatever you want. Like you can make things work that you wouldn't think would work together.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, for the process, is it like, okay, so like an episode of that, do you just watch the episode and you have your guitar in hand and like while you're seeing scenes, you're just trying different things out and like rewinding it and everything?
Yeah, for that, like I'm basically going in order, scene by scene. Like I've already watched it a few times, and the director will often say, give me notes like, in this section, I want a build, I want you to hit this joke, and then I want quiet for like 3 seconds, and then do this. So I kind of know where all those points are. Yeah. And I'll start with percussion first, and then I'll kind of figure out, like, do I need like regular drums? Do I need like orchestra drums, or just some kind of beat? And then the guitar and like the string hits and everything kind of come in at the same time. I feel like I do like a skeleton of stuff, and then you start filling in.
Cool. That's pretty awesome.
That is.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It was a lot of work, but it was one of the most rewarding things I did because I felt like it was coming out great, and we were getting better and better with every episode. Yeah. And then the DreamWorks sale went through, and I was like, oh, and we're done.
Oh, man. What about Cartoon Network? They could pick it up.
I'm sorry, what?
So what about Cartoon Network? They could pick it up.
Yeah, well, he's pitched to other people, and we did another show with DreamWorks after that was just for a short run, and for that one he wanted like the Brian Setzer orchestra feel. The director was like, I want to go like big band. I'm like, oh, that's totally different. Okay. So I have to be versatile. I have to be able to do like jazz if somebody asks for jazz, even though I hate jazz. And I have to, sometimes people want, like, I need reggae for this scene. I'm like, okay, no problem, because I write reggae all the time.
I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you, like, what is the most difficult style for you to do? Is it jazz or?
Great. Yeah.
It's not jazz because I've had to do it so much. And that's the problem, is that I don't like jazz. And then people are like, oh, I heard all this jazz stuff on your site that you did for this other project. I want that.
I want some more of that jazz.
Okay.
Bro. Yeah.
Great. Comedy used to be the hardest thing for me until I did a lot more because of the timing. Because if it's a comedy and it's live action with people, you don't want it to sound too cartoony.
I feel like, there'd be a lot of slide whistle. A lot of slide whistle.
I want Rob to make a score for a comedy.
The cartoon's great for that. And like the tuba and the oboe. But like when I was doing cartoons, that stuff's perfect because that's exactly what it's for. The problem with live is that people are always worried that it's going to come off that way. Then I have to be careful not to come off and sound like it's too cartoony.
Yeah.
But I like some of those live action movies that have that like cartoony feel to them. Like some of the older comedies did that a lot. Like the old like Airplane, things like that.
Yeah. Anything with like.
I know. I feel like I missed that era in terms of scoring because now, now what everybody wants is everyone wants everything to sound like Stranger Things because that's the new thing. I want 80s sounding synths. I'm like, oh, okay. Let me pull out the synth library that I don't use because I thought it sounded crappy.
I want Eye of the Tiger behind everything I do.
Can we sound dated but also modern?
Little Depeche Mode right there.
Rob, I want to hire you to write an entire score for one of our episodes.
Yeah, I will. I'm going to score this. Me and Rob. Yeah, 2 Robs. Double Robs.
You and Rob should do it.
We just change it up as you guys tell a sad story or like something happens that's dramatic. Just keep coming in and out.
Yo, and then just you do like a dope beat anytime I come in.
We got this rapper named The Driz, Rob.
Exactly.
Yeah. What Rob, I wanted to ask real quick too, before we run out of time, what is your favorite place to get tacos out of every place that you've been?
Ooh. It depends on I get that question a lot. It depends on the type of taco. There's a place in LA called Ricky's Fish Tacos. He has the best fish taco I've ever had anywhere. Okay. And it's the only place I'll go. But that's all he sells. So if I want a taco with like beef in it, then I got to go to a place that sells carne asada, and there's a place that's great for al pastor for pork called Leo's. So it seems to vary a little bit. Okay. What's great in northern Jersey, or actually in Hoboken, there's a place called East LA. It's like a restaurant that's amazing. Oh, wow. And there are a few places down south by the shore called like 10th Ave Burrito. we did a taco crawl when we came out for Christmas and hit up like 8 places back to back. And I found some places that were like hidden gems that I didn't even know existed in
awesome.
New Jersey, in central New Jersey.
What is your favorite variation of the taco that you mentioned? Fish, pork, and beef.
It's probably beef. It's carne asada. That's always my go-to.
Yeah.
What
If I walk into a place and I've never eaten there before, that's usually, at least we'll order one of those.
What is your opinion of Taco Bell?
I was even going to
Taco Bell totally has its place, and so does Del Taco. I mean, we have those out here.
That's what I was going to ask. I was going to ask about that place. I have never been there, but
Taco
I heard
Bell's
it's all right.
everywhere.
Yeah.
And there are times where, I mean, the one plus of Taco Bell is no matter where I'm at in the entire country, I know what it's going to taste like.
Oh.
Like, I don't have to walk in and go, oh, is this place going to be good or bad? I'm like, oh, it's Taco Bell.
No.
All I know is that I can
like
barely get home before I'm shitting my pants. Like, I cannot do Taco Bell.
Right, no, exactly.
It's rough.
I have a friend who just posted, who's a burger person. She, like, eats gourmet burgers everywhere. She lives in London. And she posted a picture of the new Big Mac. And I was like, oh, I'm so disappointed in you. And she said, you never eat at Taco Bell? And I'm like, I would never post a picture.
Yeah, I do it in my car. When the worst
you
thing.
gotta throw away the evidence.
Someone I know walks in.
Yeah,
They're like,
nobody's
hey,
going to
Rob,
know
what
about
are
it.
you doing here?
Yeah.
I was buying porn. Oh, this isn't a porn store? Taco Bell, sorry. What am I doing here?
Yeah, every now and then you do it. It's a guilty pleasure. Guilty pleasure.
Yeah. Exactly. We drove across the U.S. When we drove back and forth from New Jersey, there were times where like the only options were like Wendy's, McDonald's, or Taco Bell.
Yeah.
Like, we're just going to do Taco Bell.
Have you ever been asked to do music for a taco commercial?
No, I've done a bunch of commercials, but I've never done a taco commercial.
Ah.
I've done stuff for Sony and stuff for some tea companies and a bunch of like local businesses.
Cool.
I was going to tell you guys, one of the craziest notes I ever got when doing a commercial is somebody wanted the score to sound like a hipster with disposable income. That was the note.
What does that even mean?
And it was a conference call and it was a corporate client. So I'm like, okay, no problem.
It's got to sound like this, you understand? Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
I'm sure with disposable income.
Do they want me to like? I guess I'll call Imagine Dragons and like.
I feel like a jaw harp
write a
would be
song for
part
me.
of that. Like there'd be a jaw harp and Imagine Dragons.
A jar.
I don't know what else would be involved in that, but yeah.
It's me with drumsticks hitting a fixie bicycle,
Yes.
and like I don't know,
And like a
breaking
typewriter.
vinyl,
Yeah.
breaking a vinyl
Maybe
record.
somebody
So
just
you
plucked
so
out
you
Willie
did
Band.
you did this commercial then? Like there's a track that you did that is hipster disposable income somewhere.
Yeah, I got that note, and then I wrote something, and they were like, "No, let's do this." And then I wrote something. It was completely different, and I wrote something completely different, and then somebody else was like, No, let's sound like this song. And I was like, okay. It's the problem sometimes with ads is that you have too many people giving notes at once. When it's a movie,
too many cooks.
generally there's a producer and a director, and
Yeah.
maybe it's 2 people.
Yes.
And usually it's just the director.
Yeah.
And so you don't run into that problem. But with ad stuff, and you often get notes from people who aren't creative in that way, so they don't know how to give the right note. They're like, this needs to be happier. I'm like, how? I don't know.
I need this to sound more purple, Rob. This needs to sound way more purple. And you're like, yeah, I get it. I'll do that right away.
I wanted that sound of like the moon in the sky.
Wow.
Sometimes it's literally that to like esoteric where I've had people talk in colors before. This is the color I feel. And you just have to pretend that you understand, like, oh yeah, and then go back and write something, and they're like, yeah, that's totally it.
You nailed it.
I was expecting more of a spring feel for this.
This is more of a salmon
this feels
than a
like
pig.
autumn, and it feels like autumn on the cusp of winter.
I feel like that's the thing you've been told at least once.
Yes. Yeah, that should be a book, Rob. The craziest descriptions you've heard for music.
Yes.
You should just write a book on how to give the proper notes for your composer.
Often what happens is people are afraid to talk. They think that I'm going to talk in music. Like, I want to know, like, oh, this should be in a B minor flat, and it should be in 3/4. And so people will say, I don't know, you're the music guy. You write whatever. You figure it out. And then I'll go off and I'll write something blindly, and they'll go, oh, you used a piano. Like, you don't like piano? No. I kind of like guitar. Like, oh, all right, you like guitar.
Why did you say that?
And there's no flute. And there's no flute in it. I'm like, you like the flute too, huh? Okay. Then you have to, like, pull it out of them slowly. And then in the end, you end up with the right score, but you had to, like, they had it in them, but they know how to say it.
That's like
that
when your
happens all the
girlfriend
time.
tells you to decide where to go for dinner, and then she's pissed when you get there. Like,
Yes.
That's what
Yeah, exactly.
I was thinking with the flute thing, like there's no flute, like you're supposed to know that they wanted a flute.
How do I know
And they're
that's what you wanted? Exactly.
Like that's usually what these things have is a flute.
I wanted more harpsichord.
I was kind of hoping.
More harpsichord.
I just assumed that all scores had flutes in them.
That's why I hired you.
Rob, we have to wrap this up, dude, but thank you so much for talking to us.
No problem. Thanks for having me on, guys.
No problem. Where can everybody find you?
You can find me at robgokee.com, and you can find the podcast at Taco City Pod on Instagram and Twitter, and then I'm on Instagram and Twitter at my name. And you can find me on iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play.
Awesome, and that's
Just like you guys.
Gokee, correct?
Correct.
Awesome, dude. Thank you so much, brother.
All right. Thanks so much, you guys.
Have a good one.
You too.